All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us for this session today. Everything you need to know about smart protein. This is our outreach webinar for the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge, as we call it ISPIC or ISPIC 2021, which is a strategic initiative to build the Indian smart protein innovation ecosystem by GFI India, its partners, and a lot of strategic stakeholders. Nicole Rocque, Dr. Akhay Bhat, and myself, Shardul Dabir, will be the speakers on GFI's end. And we have a host of speakers from our supporting partners on ISPIC 2021 today. And we are very glad to welcome all of the panelists for the session today. We'll be doing a quick round of introductions towards the end and dive deep into what their opinions are about the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge, the smart protein sector, and their support on the challenge. So let's quickly start with the first segment, which is overview of the smart protein sector. After that, we'll do a deep dive in the value chain areas from a science and technology perspective of plant-based fermentation and cultivated, which are the three key modalities of production of smart proteins. And then we'll go through a session with our supporting partners, and towards the end, we'll do a quick round of Q&A with our audience. Throughout the session, you can submit your questions through the Q&A button, and our team will be looking at those questions and answering them to the best of our abilities. So thank you for staying tuned, and thank you so much for joining us for the next hour and a half. So really quickly, let's get started with the first leg of the deck. We want to tell you a little bit about what we are all working towards. So the Good Food Institute is part of an international network of nonprofits, right? What we are trying to build really is a future of food ecosystem for feeding 10 billion people by 2050. And we need to do that sustainably, efficiently, and safely. That's our mission primarily, right? And we want to focus basically on, creating the key areas or the modalities we talked about. And we can also see that currently the sector and the ways we are producing food, the future of protein, it's not really sustainable because of the reasons given here. It's not really efficient and safe. It's one of the top 2-3 significant contributors to water use, land use, climate change, loss of biodiversity, coral loss, pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, which is 14.5% of the total greenhouse gas emissions is coming from industrialized animal agriculture, which is higher share than the entire transportation sector combined. At the same time, it's an inherently inefficient system with few calories going in, few calories coming out. 8 calories going in, 1 calorie coming out, 100 calories going in, 1 calorie coming. Animals are inefficient in producing proteins, right, compared to plants and other sources like fermentation and cultivation. At the same time, we're using 77% of our agricultural land to make 1/3 of our global protein supply, which is quite alarming. At the same time, we're living amidst pandemic, zoonotic diseases, antibiotic resistant bacteria, and all of these concerns are affecting the food safety for future as well. So for those reasons, and the fact that the meat consumption will keep going up, and it's poised to increase by 70% by 2050, right? So despite of all of these revelations and data that we have and understanding we have, meat, eggs, and dairy consumption will keep rising very rapidly over the next couple of decades. And the time to act is now, which is why we are building the smart protein sector in India, and also the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge, because especially countries like India, China, Southeast Asia are going to lead this change in many cases, like poultry meat. And they have been leading the change in growth of demand for the past 20-30 years as well. And they will keep doing so over the next 20 years, which is why all the stakeholders that are in the audience today, whether you're a food technologist, biotechnologist, agriculture engineer, chemical engineer, and a lot of other non-scientific professionals who are aligned with the cause areas, contributing and building a sectors in this critical area of focus is quite timely now. So what really is the smart protein sector, right? Really quickly. And we are not delving a lot into other details because we've covered them in our first webinar. So keeping it a little short on what smart proteins really are. Globally, they're known as alternative proteins, right? It's one and the same thing, but we are basically defining them as a method of global protein diversification, right? Why can't we rely on multiple sources which are efficient, safe to use, and better for the planet and better for human health, trying to do. And GFI India defines smart protein products as the alternatives to the consumption of animal-derived meat, eggs, dairy, because they perfect replicate to the sensorial, cultural experiences that consumers crave for when they consume these products. And they offer several advantages to the supply chain and value stakeholders across the value chain as as well. And they have three key categories. Food split into three categories of production. When you're thinking about production, cost, and infrastructure needed, these are the three key modalities that we're kind of using to define these three buckets of our challenge and the smart protein sector as well. Plant-based proteins, fermentation, and cultivated meat. So let's look at each of them today, and we are going to talk about the value chain of each of them. So I'll start with the plant-based side of things because I have background in food, and then Akshay will take on fermentation and cultivated value chains. So plant-based meats are directly produced from plants or crop ingredients like pea protein and coconut oil, right? Think about it. What really is meat? It's just a bunch of chemicals put together by nature. So what you're really trying to do is figure out what are the key proteins in plants. And, plants are inherently better, but sometimes their protein is not as great as animal protein in terms of bioavailability, etc. So you have to work with it, and you have to figure out what is that perfect blend of proteins that you want to use. What are the different plant fats that you might want to use, other ingredients like vitamins, minerals, etc., etc. What do you really want to use? Because ultimately you're trying to replicate all of these functional and sensory properties obtained from fat, protein, vitamins, minerals, and water, right? So next generation of plant-based options look, taste, and even cook. The whole process is like conventional meat cooking. So it's quite exciting for those reasons. Just a second. All right. So like animal products, basically plant-based meats are cooked from, made from entirely from plants. And we have a couple of examples to show you. So, yellow pea protein is used to make Beyond Burger, which uses 89% less greenhouse gases and 99% less water, right? And Eat Just, which uses mung bean. India is one of the largest producers of mung bean and has been doing that for thousands of years. Uses 98% less land, 98% less water, 83% less land, 93% less CO2 is emitted in the environment. And at the same time, they've recently sold almost 100 million egg equivalents plus. Plant-based dairy at the same time can be made from pea protein, coconuts, indigenous crops, millets, pulses. I've seen people using cauliflower to make plant-based cheese, which is quite identical to the kind of cheese we used to eating. At the same time, you have to account for nutrition, you have to account for functionality, and you have to account for a whole lot of other gastronomic factors as well while making these products and designing these products. So let's talk about the value chain of plant-based protein products, right? Firstly, you have to go to the crops. You have to optimize the crops so that they suit the kind of purpose that you're looking to use them for. The best source material. Can we get, there are allergen issues with soy. Can we work on those to reduce those? Can we work on yellow pea protein to, maybe increase its specific characteristics so that it will perform very well in a plant-based meat, plant-based dairy, or plant-based egg application, etc., etc. That's the kind of thinking you have here. And you're trying to optimize these crops via breeding or engineering. And then it goes into a raw material optimization kind of a phase where we are looking to use mechanical and chemical processes to create optimal ingredients for the end product, right? And in a lot of cases, extraction, isolation of protein ingredients, etc., would be part of it. And then end product composition and process of optimization of these ingredients, right? The correct mix is chosen now, and food technologists are coming together. Maybe a bunch of other engineers like chemical engineers, materials engineers, etc., are also applying their skills, and they're kind of working on new product development to make sure that the desired taste, texture, smell, and structure is created for these end products, so that consumer demands taste, price, and convenience, which is what we need to give them. It has to cost the same or better. It has to be similar priced or less. And in fact, it has to be as conveniently available. So you have to think about shelf stability, distribution, all of that. So all of those factors have to be accounted for in the value chain. Let's talk about few ingredients. People often ask me, what are the best ingredients to use in terms of making plant-based meat, eggs, and dairy? There are a bunch of considerations here. Soy, pea, wheat, chickpea, fava bean, lentil, lupin, mung bean, almonds, corn, potato, quinoa, multiple other indigenous crops, millets, beans we have in India as well. The point of consideration here are many, many different points of consideration while choosing an ingredient, right? You have to think about its concentration. You have to think about its PDCAS score, how much available is it in your body, how much allergen risk each of those ingredients might possess in your end product. What is the consumer perception of these products? Are they at commercial stage of production? Are they easily available? Are they flavorful? Are they going to serve your specific functionality speciality, right? A specific chickpea protein concentrate or isolate might not. So besan is the raw form of chickpea, but then you get a concentrate which is slightly concentrated from an isolate is the most pure form of protein that you can get from chickpea. So for example, how would those all perform in different application areas and products? That's quite important to think as well, because if you're using a specific variety which is not going to give you that emulsifying property, then maybe you might not be able to replace a lot of egg applications, right? If you want that exact bite and texture that a meat has, the proteins in job in that case as well. So you have to account for all of that. And then you have to think about its cost, because ultimately that's quite important. So the good thing is India is one of the largest producers of a lot of these crops. So India has a huge opportunity to become in a lot of these areas of value chain, whether it's for exporting, also the building and growing local in the future. And think if you've ever worked or know anybody who's ever worked in some of these areas. Globally, we've been trying to optimize a few crops, right? Wheat, rice, soy, but we have really not accounted for a lot of protein-rich crops in R&D. So that's a huge white space. We're thinking about, omega-3 fatty acids. We're thinking about algae, seaweed, and aquatic plants, because they can be used for plant-based seafood in many ways. Quite excellent examples of scalability, but there are a lot of commercial issues, sometimes taste issues, aftertaste issues, etc. with these, but they use minimal land, they're high in protein. So that's another class of, ingredients that's quite exciting for the future. So like I said, you have to think about not one specific ingredient, but a blend of raw materials, right? You're not just thinking about proteins, you're thinking about minerals, vitamins. Protein is obviously a key of it. But when you extract proteins, you have to understand where is the rest of it going to go? Where are the starches going to go? Where are the fibers going to go? You cannot just set up a value chain for an entire crop in ether, right? You have to account for its raw products, byproducts, and its use in the industry as well in many cases. And at the same time, you have to think multiple proteins, because you have to create blends for obtaining the optimum protein content and quality, getting the desired nutrition that you want, consumer perception, availability, allergen and intolerance issues, cost, obviously, and then again, flavor, texture, mouthfeel, aroma, all of these things which are key to making the product that you're looking to make. So these are the kind of attributes we're looking for when we're looking at the protein specifically in the value chain: dispersibility, solubility, viscosity, gelation, emulsification, foaming, water holding, oil holding. So, I mean, some of these might sound foreign to you if you're not from a science background or food tech background, but basically these are the attributes which we are looking to really evaluate and understanding if a crop is great for using it into, plant-based meat, plant-based dairy, plant-based egg application, plant-based seafood application, because the diversity of these products is huge, right? Within meats, there are so many different types of meats. Within seafood, there are so many different types of seafood. So you have to really do a lot of work, which we haven't really been doing globally. So there's a lot of scope for R&D, etc. in these areas as well. And these attributes depend on a lot of other, process and product parameters like solvent, concentration, the temperature of the process or extraction, time, pressure, shear, concentration, etc., etc. So currently we are using few of these technologies: mixing, molding, forming, twin screw, high moisture extrusion, low moisture extrusion. And you might have heard of some of these names. Low moisture extrusion is used to make kurkure or a bunch of other namkeens that you might have seen on your shelf. And we currently are primarily looking to use high moisture extrusion because you get a high quality of plant-based meat out of it. But a lot of new processes are evolving on the side as well. This is what we currently use as processes and production technologies for making plant-based meats. But there's 3D printing, there's shear cell technology, which is again led by mechanical innovation, and other automation innovation, etc. in case of 3D printing, and it's growing rapidly. At the same time, biological innovation is happening through fermentation lens. And obviously, Akshay will talk a little bit more about this. But then there's also a lot of design and engineering innovation happening for build for scale production, because food technologists or other such allied professionals might work on creating recipes, right? And that's the difference: recipes versus formulation. Culinary experts or people who don't have a background in scalability of some of these formulations might create those at the startup level, at the kitchen scale level, but we won't see shelf stable products which can be, for example, given to a larger audience. The cost won't come down. So a lot of science and technology has to be applied to scale up as well. So these are some key areas like finding the right crops, isolating and functionalizing the raw materials, using a lot of data, because it's difficult to understand which exact properties. So bioinformatics, crop genetics, crop statistics, a bunch of other tools that you can use, AI and ML, for optimization and understanding of a lot of these parameters, functionality, etc., is quite important. At the same time, there has to be a lot of food science, chemical engineering, materials innovation in terms of extruders, in terms of its processes of scale up, the quality and the kind of taste you get for the end products. So through and through, there's a lot of scope, but these are some key buckets into which the opportunities really lie. So India has a lot of dishes. We were talking about this earlier, right? A mutton curry in Kolkata versus a mutton curry in Maharashtra would be different in many cases, right? Similarly, there's just so much variety inside the meat arena, right? There's tons of textures, flavors, there's tons of profiles of taste. The good thing is we use a lot of spices as well. So there's more room for innovation. And there's no national dish, though biryani, etc., might come as kind of a national dish, which everybody kind of uses. But local product market fit is important. Understanding which crops are available in India, how we're going to tap into those value chains, what kind of infrastructure exists, is also useful to understand for you all as you take part in the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge and think about innovating in some of these areas. So this is what the industry was at, right? We used soy, jackfruit, and we had like version 1.0 products back in 2018, 2017, when the sector was quite new in India, right? These were low fidelity mimics of meat. And, for example, jackfruit, I'm from Maharashtra. People have been saying that jackfruit is a bio mimic of meat for ages now. There's nothing new, but that doesn't stop people from eating meat, eggs, and dairy. They just use these products as high vegetarian protein category products. They don't really mimic the taste, texture of meat, really, if you think about it. And no hardcore non-vegetarian or flexitarian, out of which 71% of Indians are, self-reported non-vegetarians, though our per capita consumption is less, which is why the theory of change is quite important. You have to replicate the taste, and textures and all of that to really get there, which is what the current pool of companies are really doing. This is not an exhaustive list, but we are seeing a lot of interesting products like nuggets, chicken keema, curry kits, shami kebabs, galati kebabs, specific mutton curries, chicken curries in package format, specifically for the Indian consumers that local Indian grown companies and startups are launching now. This is not exhaustive at all, but this is just to tell you a little bit about some of the startups and companies operating in this space, like Imagine Meats from Deshanjaniya Deshmukh, Greenest, Blue Tribe Foods that I was talking about earlier in terms of plant-based schema. In dairy, there's in milk, there's Good Milk and Beverly, and then there's Evo and plant-made in eggs. There's a lot of exciting innovation happening on the ingredient side of things with ProEon. You might have seen their recent news of funding as well. If you've not, you can Google them and you can see our posts as well for the exciting news. And then there has been a lot of innovation across the value chain, and we've been seeing dozens of entrepreneurs currently working on different products who will be products in the next year in the market as well. So there's room for everyone, right? There's opportunity for everyone. Smart protein jobs have started to exist and will continue growing in many, many sectors in India, whether it's academia, so research, teaching, extension. I know a lot of people who are already working with professors on extruders, trying to get industry to come on. For example, in some universities in the South, at key universities in IITs, NIFTEM, etc., people have started researching on these things. The industry is also a key stakeholder here. So there would be a lot of jobs in startups, established food companies as they look to source talent who can make these smart protein products, whether it's food or life science corporates, etc. And also, if you're coming from a business background, investors are going to need analysts and associates who track this sector, who understand how to invest in this sector. So we're already seeing a lot of people make careers in all of these areas in India specifically. And then there's obviously a lot of government opportunities in terms of research, policy, funding. And obviously, if you are interested in the non-profit sector building kind of areas, there are a lot of exciting roles open at the Good Food Institute India. And I was able to choose one of those 3 years ago. And, after speaking with hundreds of stakeholders, we've realized that this a key need for technical expertise, biochemistry, food science, plant physiology, tissue engineering, mechanical chemical engineering, microbiology, protein chemistry, computer science, synthetic biology. You need a lot of these skills, and there's an overlap across the three key areas of production, right? So I won't go into a lot of details, but basically the point here is no matter what your skills. So for example, you might not need tissue engineering here, but you would definitely need it here. But essentially, we need a lot of technical and sci-tech expertise across many disciplines for these sectors to grow, which is why a lot of audience and a lot of our supporting partners are going to be talking about that. But other than sci-tech areas, there's a lot of additional expertise required. It's a building of a sector entirely, right? So it does not matter where you're coming from, whether you're a lawyer or an environmental science person, as long as you can relate to the sector, the mission areas behind it, and see a lucrative opportunity to make a future-proof career in an area which is growing rapidly globally. I think, and then that's why this is an exciting time to consider. You learn something at the cutting edge of technology. There are so many white space areas. So the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge gives you that platform where you can start this journey and really build your career in a successful area, which is high with opportunities. At the same time, work on building this from the grounds up. There's a different level of satisfaction when you create a sector from scratch, which is what I think the smart protein sector is able to also offer you. Now, I would invite our sci-tech specialist, Mr. Akhay Vishnu Bhat, to take on the next leg of the session.
Hey, thank you very much, Shardul. Yeah, thanks for taking all of the audience through broadly covering the smart protein sector as well as some of the key functional areas of plant-based proteins. So moving forward, Shardul, if you could please move to the next slide. Thank you. So moving to the second bucket of alternative protein, that's basically fermentation. So fermentation includes cultivation of any microbial species for either wholesale biomass or let's say a valuable fraction or a high value ingredient which is coming out of these microbial species per se. So this platform is very well established, but this sector is actually the smart protein sector is a relatively new application area. So fermentation is also enabling the next generation of animal-free meat, eggs, and dairy products with a radically low environmental burden compared to animal agriculture. So, yeah. Yeah, so fermentation has been, the previous slide, please, Shardul. So fermentation has been used in food production for millennia. Ancient civilizations have used microbial cultures to preserve foods or create alcohol or improve nutritional value and bioavailability of foods ranging from, let's say, kimchi to tempeh. Over the past century, fermentation and now spans industry chemicals, biomaterials, therapeutics, medicines, fuels, and that's a long list of other ingredients as well. So the suite of tools developed through fermentation evolution is now being repurposed towards the food sector, especially to revolutionize the smart protein sector, basically. So the term fermentation carries distinct meaning across different disciplines within the biology. Within biology, it refers to specific metabolic pathways used to generate energy in the absence of oxygen. And within the alternative protein industry, fermentation can be used specifically in three different ways. So if you go to the next slide, there are three ways in which fermentation can play a part in alternative proteins. That is traditional fermentation, biomass fermentation, as well as precision fermentation. Traditional fermentation uses intact live microorganisms to modulate and process plant-derived ingredients. Examples are like using the fungus Rhizopus to ferment soya beans into tempeh, as well as using various lactic acid bacteria to produce cheese and yogurt, for example. And when you come to biomass fermentation, it's basically producing proteins in a very large scale, which leverages the fast growth as well as high protein content of many microorganisms to efficiently produce large quantities of whole proteins. The third vertical of fermentation is precision fermentation, which uses microbial hosts basically and create them into cell factories for producing specific high value ingredients. And in terms of, let's say, smart proteins, it could be, let's say, fermentation derived milk proteins, for example. So if you go to the next slide. So I mean, there have been many startups in the field of fermentation, right? So we can split it across traditional fermentation, biomass fermentation, as well as precision fermentation. So when we specifically talk about traditional fermentation, there are companies like Mycotechnology, which uses let's say microorganisms as a whole, fungi as a whole, to produce protein biomass, for example. Sorry, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. I think my internet is down. Okay. So Mycotechnology is basically fermenting a blend of pea and rice protein with shiitake mushroom to functionalize it and to remove, let's say, off flavors. Ozo's main ingredient is basically fermented pea and rice protein. And moving into biomass fermentation, there are companies such as Meaty, which is basically a US-based company, and the main ingredient is a specific type of mycelia, which can be grown indoors, similar to how basically beer is manufactured. The mycelium naturally mimics, let's say, muscle tissue, and it makes it ideal for conversion into plant-based meat products. Similarly, At Last Food company uses solid-state fermentation to grow its mushroom mycelium into meat products. So coming to precision fermentation, there are a bunch of companies. Altogether, there are like 44 plus companies across fermentation, but I'm just giving you a few examples here. That is Clara Foods, which is also based out of US, which is using advanced yeast engineering and fermentation to create egg white proteins. A Perfect Day in Berkeley, which uses fermentation, like I said before, to create milk proteins. Geltor, Triton, Richco Life Sciences, which is a homegrown company based out of Bangalore, India. It's basically an innovation that's led by a technology company developing novel, let's say, enzymatic solutions for industrial biotechnology, as well as animal-free, let's say, culture media components. Similar to plant-based proteins, fermentation is also at its very nascent stage in India, and with more scientific developments, we will definitely see the sector growing moving forward in India as well. So if you go to the next slide, we can see what are the key steps involved in the production of using, let's say, microorganisms or fungi. Basically, the first one is a strain selection, where basically biology has a boundless amount of, let's say, molecules which can be assembled to different flavors, textures, and aromas. However, not all these ingredients can be easily sourced, right? So especially at large volumes at low prices. And by using microbial cells as production host, precision fermentation, for example, allows for highly scalable and virtually probably any kind of ingredient can be basically manufactured. So target selection and design is basically the starting point and the most important point for the process of precision fermentation per se. The molecule or the molecules of interest are referred to as target, and the target can be a protein, lipid, flavor compound, fragrance, enzyme, growth factor, etc., etc. So precision fermentations used, for example, in fermentation is probably the best example is Impossible Foods, which they have produced soy leg hemoglobin, which actually gives the color red to the plant-based meat they are actually producing. And this is basically produced using a microorganism called as Pichia pastoris. So again, moving into production, typically liquid state or semi-solid state fermentation for production of yeast and fungi are basically employed. But the major bottleneck here is how these production facilities usually have very limited options for process design and to accommodate, let's say, novel organisms, or to suit, for example, different manufacturing requirements for alternative protein applications in the field of fermentation. Again, the vast majority of fermentation facilities currently operational for, let's say, industrial biotechnology use submerged fermentation, meaning that microbial cells are suspended on a liquid medium, nutrient medium, basically. However, some of the structured and intact uses of whole cell biomass rely on solid state fermentation, while microbes are inoculated on a moist, let's say, solid feedstock. And feedstocks provide very important nutrients, right? The basic building blocks of life to support microorganisms during fermentation. And probably much of the adaptability of fermentation derives from its innate flexibility in terms of the right, let's say, components and the feedstock raw material inputs. So moving to downstream processing, downstream purification and post-harvest processing requirements also vary widely depending on your, let's say, the kind of microorganisms you're using, or the kind of strain selection you're doing. Current enzyme production processes represent one of the most important process, which typically assume very high purity. That very high purity is required, whereas this may probably not be necessary in terms of, let's say, creating flavoring ingredients of functional proteins, for example, in the smart protein sector. Again, various other parameters also vary. For example, methods of harvesting the end product. removing contamination, biological contamination such as RNA, sterilization, and also extraction of functional ingredients, like I said before. So this was a gist of, or an overview of the value chain of fermentation and the opportunities which lie specifically in this vertical of smart protein. So if you move to the next slide, I'll be talking a little bit more about the third vertical, which is cultivated meat. So yeah, cultivated meat, verbatim is, which is also known as culture of cell-based meat. Verbatim is genuine animal meat derived through cultivation and expansion of animal-derived muscle cells. So basically, cultivated meat is produced through the use of tissue engineering techniques, which have been widely used in pharmaceutical industries and biotechnology application areas, which basically is repurposing right now. This field is basically repurposing the existing tissue engineering or biomedical science knowledge as well as technology to produce animal meat without growing the whole animal, basically. So using the methods such as cell culture, then moving into certain different verticals of cultivated meat, which I'll be talking a little bit more. But again, it's basically growing animal meat to our liking and outside the body of the animal. So if you go to the next slide. Yeah, so when we talk about scale, so cultivated meat probably looks something like this at scale. So ultimately, when we have to repurpose some of the things which have been employed, such as tissue engineering, biomedical sciences, I think we need to put a food production lens to it. In other words, we have to deliver the same sensory aspects as well as all other qualities which come with animal meat, but that's going to be at a very, very humongous scale. And maybe perhaps moving forward, derive novel, let's say, products which are probably even more tastier and have better organoleptic properties, for example. So a very, very high level of explanation would be here to start with the starter culture of cells, basically a sample of cells, either through a biopsy or through extraction of, let's say, certain highly dividing cells, such as stem cells. And it's also important that one must be able to find the right animal species. It could be, and the right kind of cells, right? So it could be a combination of muscle cells and fat cells derived from animals which are of interest in terms of creating cultivated meat, such as from avian, bovine, porcine species or marine species, for example. So this is again followed by bench scale optimization, which is like a mini kind of a let's say pilot scale setup. You are basically optimizing the cell growth, you're optimizing culture media combinations, you're optimizing co-culturing of cells such as adipocytes, fibroblasts, etc., to give you that consistent output of muscle cells in combination with other cells, which could probably give you the same, let's say, texture, taste, and the quality of what actually animal-derived meat actually gives in reality. So this would also mean standardizing aspects of cell lines, such as immortalization, right? Also defining the let's say experimental models for proliferation and differentiation, and optimizing it again and again so that you have a consistent set of outputs or results at the end. And after such many reiterations, you basically move into basically pilot scale iterations where you will employ larger bioreactor systems. And then you have to think about how will you actually put feed media into this bioreactor? How do you actually recycle this media? And also, how do you integrate some of the sensors, which would be very important to look at various, let's say, factors influencing the growth and proliferation of cells, such as pH, temperature. And finally, when you move to industrial scale, which none of the companies are right now currently at, but when you move into an industrial production scale, it will involve, again, larger, very larger bioprocessing units across cultivated meat production, probably including scaffolding and different varieties of basically culturing these cells in different models of bioreactors to provide the best structure, taste, and it's also at the same time very cost effective, or at least at parity at what the animal derived meat is currently at in the market. So if you move to the next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, so to give you the sense of how this sector is truly a sunrise sector. It has grown rapidly over the last 4-5 years. In 2018, there were a couple of dozen of companies. Now we have 100+ companies across different verticals of cultivated meat. And big investors and corporates across the world are pumping a lot of money into this sector across not only just cultivated meat, but also plant-based meat and fermentation as well. And the industry of alternative protein basically spending $1 billion every year. So we anticipate that big funds will also be channeled into the nascent cultivated meat ecosystem in India and the smart protein ecosystem in general, as we continue to stimulate the ecosystem and build value chain and services piece of cultivated meat sector here as well. So yeah, if you go to the next slide actually takes you through the core research areas or verticals of, let's say, within cultivated meat, that is cell line development, culture media, formulations, scaffolding, as well as bioprocess designs. So in cell culture, cell line development, cells used in cultivated meat may be, like I said before, pluripotent cells, embryonic stem cells, or even mesenchymal cells. Proliferative capacity should be actually taken into consideration, how stable these cells are, how predictably they'll stay in their state. And even if you convert these cells into muscle cells or different types of cell lineages, how stable are these lineages moving forward when you think about large scale production? Also, in terms of innovation or opportunities, one can think about creating cell line repositories, cell bank creations, for example, and also out licensing these cell lines. Just to give you a highlight of how much of time it requires, probably takes around 16 to 18 months of labor intensive research to actually create a new cell line. So probably this is something which some of our audiences or some of the applicants, prospective applicants to the Smart Protein Challenge can consider moving forward. And coming to cell culture media development and design, basically it's nothing but a combination of basal medium as well as growth factors, signaling proteins, which basically control cell behavior. So right now, this is very important because cell culture media costs the highest. It costs around 97% of the total cost of producing cultivated meat. So currently in the market, roughly each liter of this culture media costs around $400, and the challenge is to get it down to $1 per liter, or else scaling cultivated meat would become very, very difficult. So this is a place of innovation as well, thinking about how we can actually produce these growth factors using, again, plugging into different other verticals such as per se precision fermentation, or getting these growth factors out of plants, and also thinking about how these growth factors, how this media serum, how this culture media could be serum free, and also think about how we can actually reduce the cost and make it scalable, and also at the same time think about food grade when it comes to food, right? So the next, let's say, core research area would be scaffolding. So the development of scaffolds for cultivated meat basically requires expertise in cell biology and tissue engineering, probably with the focus on, let's say, specific niche areas such as extracellular matrix. So what tissue engineers actually try to do is recapitulate tissue growth outside the body, and basically it was being researched so far for biomedical applications. Now it's been again repurposed towards cultivated meat. So the scaffolds for cultivated meat again should be food grade most of the time, provide the access to oxygen and nutrients, and have the material properties, mechanical, biochemical, and they should be also compatible with the cells. I mean the cells which are actually engineers or, let's say, researchers are trying to grow on these scaffolds. So again, it's a combination of how scaffold cells as well as culture media interact, how these cell culture media can actually access these cells, give the right nutrition at the right time. So I think these are some of the areas where some amount of thinking can be done, and a lot of opportunity for innovation exists at this point in time. So some examples of scaffolds would be like alginate or cellulose proteins such as zine, and even texturized vegetable proteins or texturized, let's say, soy protein, for example. Coming to the fourth vertical, that's basically bioprocess design. The most important part of bioprocess design is basically bioreactors, which we also call as cultivators in the context of, let's say, smart proteins. So bioreactors provide the housing, control conditions that enable cells to grow, and bioreactors control temperature, pH, oxygen levels, etc., and also deliver the culture media to the cells. So different types of bioreactors basically exist, and that has been a long-standing histories of employing bioreactors. Although again, these have been done for other areas such as, let's say, biotechnology, or bioreactors have been used to, let's say, plug into fermentation, for example, but none of these bioreactors are specifically designed to grow animal cells. And probably when you think about different types of meat, for example, minced meat would not require a scaffold, but let's say whole cut meat would require a scaffold, and they would require totally different kinds of bioreactor designs. And this is an area where a lot of opportunity for innovation exists at this point in time in the field of cultivated meat. Yeah, I think this was an overview of, let's say, the value chain areas of cultivated meat. So if you go to the next slide, we have a spectrum of how smart protein foods would actually look like. Currently, most of the companies are focusing on plant-based, let's say, meat. For example, Beyond Burger and Impossible Burgers. And what generally the idea is that we might see hybrid products coming into the market before the market is fully captured or fully taken up by, let's say, cultivated meat. So in terms of supplying ingredients into hybrid products, we could have plant-based proteins combined with, let's say, something which is for example, cultivated fat derived through cultivation of fat cells, for example, from specific species, or it could be high value ingredients derived through precision fermentation, like, for example, like I said before, some of the milk proteins, which could be also plugged into, let's say, hybrid products, not only in terms of meat, but also in terms of eggs and dairy as well. So right now we have the market being captured by plant-based, and moving forward, we'll probably have a spike in fermentation as well as hybrid products, and cultivated meat would take a little more time in order to come to the market. So if you go to the next slide, so this is basically about how alternative proteins compare with conventional meat in terms of environmental impact. So I'll not spend a lot of time because I think we are already over 45 minutes with this presentation. But in short, when you move into, let's say, plant-based or cultivated meat or fermentation, most of these, let's say, verticals of smart proteins consume very, very less amounts of water and land. And plant-based meat actually stands out in terms of consumption of, let's say, resources compared to cultivated meat. But this has been basically taken out from an analysis which we have done in terms of economic analysis, as well as the LCA analysis, which we have done at GFI, which actually takes the best case scenarios possible and the most amount of, let's say, energy which might be consumed in order to produce any of these types of meat. But if you guys are interested in digging deeper into this, probably you can have a look at the LCA and TA analysis, which will be available on our GFI website. So yeah, this was it from my side, and probably I'll ask Nicole to take over in terms of speaking a little bit about our supporting partners.
Thank you so much, Akshay, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Shardul, if you can go to the next slide, I want to take a moment to just introduce some of our supporting partners that are on this call with us today. A lot of what we're planning to do for the challenge, both during the challenge in terms of giving you the right kind of technical expertise, as well as following up from the challenge by giving you access to a network of incubation partners as well as government partners to support your journey as a smart protein entrepreneur. None of this would be possible without our partners here today. And with that, Shardul, if you can go to the next slide. I would like to begin a short Q&A session with our partners for you to get to know them better, as well as have them interact with you prior to the challenge itself. So if all our partners can switch on their videos, if you feel comfortable to do that. But if not, we can just jump straight into our Q&A session. My first question is for Dr. Manish Diwan. Dr. Manish Diwan is the head of strategic partnerships at BIRAC, which is a department under the Department of Biotechnology. Dr. Manish Diwan, thank you for being here today, and thank you for your time. One question, we've been working with BIRAC quite often to develop an enabling ecosystem for this sector. BIRAC more broadly has acted as a key facilitation agency for nurturing the growth of the biotechnology sector in India by building a pipeline of bio entrepreneurs and startups, as well as through capacity building to the establishment of a bio incubation network pan-India. And a lot of the bio incubator partners we have here are in fact partners of BIRAC. So as a supporting partner to the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge, what are some of the key resources that challenge participants can access to ensure their success during as well as after the challenge that is provided to some to bio entrepreneurs across the country? Dr. Diwan, you're on mute.
Nicole,
thank you for giving me the access to unmute myself. Nicole and the team, I think this is a very important activity. I must congratulate the team of Good Food Institute to put together. And as I mentioned before, this also becomes a strategic activity that BIRAC is happy to support. I think as you asked what kind of support that can be extended for people who want to venture into this important area. I think the support can be of various kinds. One is the enabling ecosystem access, and I think I'm very happy that at least three of our incubators are directly participating and reflecting the commitment right up front. The BIRAC has 60 incubators who are specialized for the biotech relevant support to, and those are open and accessible in as many as 18 states. So our entrepreneurs, startups, or innovators who would like to venture into this area, they can access that common facility right up front. Along with that, I think if you notice, these incubators are housed in academic high research institutions. So along with that, it comes a huge bandwidth of mentors and experts, both from the research institutions as well as the mentor experts who are integrated into the system. So that would involve from industry, investment, regulatory. So the entire breadth of it, that becomes accessible. There are 16 research institutions which are aligned with the Department of Biotechnology. So BIRAC being BIRAC being a agency which has been seeded in by Department of Biotechnology. So that ecosystem also becomes accessible. Now, this put together becomes a substantial bandwidth. So it provides access to knowledge source, access to talented as well as trained human resources whom you would like to engage when, for example, if you want to create a team along with you. So that team, you will need those people who are trained, exposed to that infrastructure, becomes accessible. Then the entire strength of high capex intensive infrastructure, high-end equipment, central instrumentation facilities in the research institutions, in the bio incubators, those become accessible. So this is not a trivial access, and it's very substantial. So some of those incubators, I see IIT Madras Incubator is here, SINE, CCAMP, as CCMB, NIFTEM. So around this incubator network, you have capacities of up to 2,000 liter fermentation, which is there. In the research institutions, you have even larger fermentation capacities of industrial scale. This is at the high-end manufacturing when you are all ready to deliver. But I think even for the initial R&D, you would require 5 liter or a couple of liter fermenters. So that bandwidth both pre as well as post upstream, downstream, that all is available. BIRAC for this particular challenge has come as a support partner, knowledge partner, but all the entrepreneurs or all startups or all contestants who are competing for this challenge on the merit basis, they are also eligible to contest for BIRAC's ongoing funding schemes. And you can actually propose your idea and then also seek funding directly from BIRAC aligned to this challenge and the larger objective of delivering a synthetic protein or protein precision fermentation going forward. I think the entire journey is little longer. It will take several years to actually bring the proof of concept, validations, and then evolvement towards the final product. But I'm very sure and I'm very certain that we can do it and that we have already demonstrated it. It's just that we are moving from simple scenario to a more complex scenario. Let me substantiate that. Insulin, for example, we used to extract from the animal source. So 10,000 pounds worth of pancreas tissue would give you 1 pound of insulin. We moved away, and we moved away from, let's say, early 2000. We stopped relying on the animal source and we completely moved to synthetic insulin, human analogs, and pure synthetic insulin. And that has got trivialized. So you need to, the therapeutic proteins, the various antibodies, they're all proteins, right? So single well-characterized protein, we have been able to build.
Listen to this. And when I joined,
we have been able to.
Was very much informed.
I think Sunil, if you can put yourself on mute, would be very helpful.
Maybe I will.
Okay. Thank you there, Nicole. So for singular protein, simple systems, we've been able to scale at a large level, so that it has become manufactured at scale, become accessible, but we have also been able to reduce the cost so that it becomes affordable. And that is something I think also is a critical factor. If you're trying to create a synthetic meat, so it has to be affordable and made at a scale so that people can adopt it. So I think we have demonstrated that, and in past, so system is mature enough, and all of you who are participating as well as who are attending this meeting become one of the champions to undertake this challenge. So I think the roadmap is there. It's just that some people have to take that initiative and move forward. And as we go through, one last bit, Nicole, before I stop, the regulatory framework is unknown, or it's kind of a not clearly defined at present. But as we go along, I think that is another support that we intend to lay down on the path when we move forward. So that support would also come into being without saying. Thank you, Nicole. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diwan, and thank you for giving us that very well-rounded response, both in terms of the expertise, the infrastructure, the regulatory side, in terms of funding support that the government is already providing bio entrepreneurs, as well as can be extended to entrepreneurs within this sector. And also pointing out the example of insulin, which is a very relevant example of moving away from an animal-derived protein source into a more efficient, more sustainable production platform, which is exactly what we're trying to do as well as part of this sector. So thank you very much for your inputs. With that, I would love to move on to some of our bio incubator partners. So we have Dr. Nalam Madhusudhana Rao, the CEO of the Atal Incubation Center at CCMB. CCMB is one of the foremost institutions for developing cutting-edge technical solutions for cultivated meat as well as fermentation-derived proteins, and has a lot to offer to really drive innovation in this sector. And so with that, Madhuji, if I can ask you to please describe, some of the existing expertise that challenge participants will have access to through the AIC-CCMB network.
Yeah, good evening, GFI and all the panelists. Obviously, one reason we got into this, activities because it's so very exciting, and it actually is one of the areas where all areas of research can contribute, right? Let it be a kind of engineers, polymer chemists, biologists, of course, all these come into play. And we were interested in the third part of it, that is mostly cultivated meat technologies to develop it. Of course, it's a big ask, but we made a beginning where, because there are so many components involved in it along the workflow, right from, all of you know that to grow these, say, for example, muscle cells, you have to isolate them, identify the stem cells, grow them into several generations, and then, transform them into myotubes and from myoplasm. There is, at various steps, there are certain molecular markers that need to be developed, which was kind of effort that was made at CCMB with the help of National Institute for Meat Research in Hyderabad. Fortunately, we have very good collaboration with them. So quite a few challenges that normally we face have been described by the Dr. Bhat and others. One of the major things is, of course, the cost of production, especially the fermentation part. As said, the growth factors are crucial for the growth of the cells, and that is the growth factors of the major cost. So how do you bring down the cost? So fermentation is one way of making these growth factors, which is something we, out of the 6 that are required for the sheep muscle cells, we have kind of optimized the processes for 4 of them. So these kind of efforts are very important, and many people can it is within the reach of many molecular biologists, microbiologists. They can come up with a better strategies than we have to make these growth factors at a large scale. And that will be a huge addition. Right now, that is one major block in translating this technology into something much more affordable. And like Dr. Bhat said about the life cycle analysis, this is one major expensive component. The other one is, once you have these stem cells, they don't grow eternally. I mean, in fact, you have to have certain number before you harvest the things. And most of these stem cells and these muscle cells, they have their number of divisions are limited. And there are very standard cell biology techniques to extend the replications, number of divisions that a cell can go, so that the volume increases. The number of cells will increase per ml or per liter. Here, what happens is, after certain, because of very strong molecular cell biology reasons, the replication stop at some point. But there are strategies to overcome that. But you cannot use viruses in this technology. So you'll have to come up with some nice, insightful alternates to extend the replication number. So this is something that one very interesting challenge area, where how do I extend the division number from, say, 20 to 60, 20 to 40? I mean, that's a very interesting challenge for many cell biologists in this audience. And the other one we find is the scaffolds. Of course, there are a lot of alternates there are a lot of options for scaffolds, but at the same time, the surfaces that the scaffold offer are not very compatible to the muscle cells to grow. How do you create an interface that is very affordable? Again, fermentation-based scaffold as interfaces you have to develop, like some collagen-based. Obviously, you can't use matrigels and things like that, which are of animal origin. You have to come up with your own extracellular matrices with very innovative designs, so that you can coat these scaffolds, so that these that part of the technology is much more affordable. That is something that we also have attempting, but I'm sure any biotechnology graduates or postgraduates, I'm sure they will get a lot of solutions if they just put your head to it. This is a very interesting problem to solve. And it is a challenge for all over the world, not only for us. How do you make these interfaces affordable and usable and things like that? The third one is, which I think many people briefly mentioned in the initial talks, is about the volatiles, aroma volatiles. In fact, if you see around, most of the, somebody talked about the kind of red colored solutions that are produced by Pichia, some kind of iron-based solutions. That gives you the look of it, the look of any something, a plant-based meat to look like a meat, plant-based food to look like a meat. But how about aroma? I mean, all of us, we love food because of the aroma. So one should spend a little bit more time. It could be a very good, interesting problem for chemistry people, where can I break down the combinations of aroma volatiles, say for mutton versus chicken versus prawns versus something like that. I mean, this is something I haven't seen much effort that is going around in the world. Probably going around, but not, we can't see it probably. But I think this is something, in my opinion, a very important and important component of the overall, context of meat. It is not only the material, not only the color, but also the aroma has to go with it if you want to call a meat, right? So this is something I think many people can take a look at it. And, a lot of people talk about today, most of the technologies that people talk about are minced kind of products. There is no bone in it yet. Whatever technologies like, the burgers or the Singapore company products, and these are all soups, and minced meat is what mostly talked about. At least others are not in the market yet. But if you're looking at bone and then, steaks and things like that, that's a different kind of next stage of challenge. But today we have enough challenges in our before us on the plate to get around. I'm sure these are all, in my opinion, low-hanging fruits if somebody puts their head to it. I think this kind of interaction sessions will greatly help people to get into it. This is what I felt based on our very short experience in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madhuji. And I think you summed that up as well perfectly, specifically on the challenges within the cultivated meat sector. And for participants that are interested in specifically applying within this sector, we've put together 5 different RFPs within the track 1, which is the ideation track, which is focused on developing more of these theoretical solutions. And this spans across some of the problem areas that Madhuji has already highlighted, whether that's in cell line development, in the cell media components, as well as some of the applied in the fermentation track, at least, as well as some of the high value ingredients that can be developed and used as raw materials within the plant-based sector as well as the cultivated meat sector. So thank you so much for highlighting that. We'll be sharing a list of problem statements with all participants that are interested specifically in this sector as soon as you go through the phase 1, both in terms of track 1, which we share the 5 RFPs, as well as in track 2, where we'll be highlighting specific value chain areas where we think innovation is severely required, not just for the domestic market, as Madhuji has rightly pointed out, but for the international ecosystem to really grow. So thank you so much for your inputs on that. Next, we'd like to move to the SINE incubator at IIT Bombay. We've been working with SINE on a number of initiatives over the last year. So if we can, Dr. Bratati, if we can just ask you to very quickly sort of highlight some of the key initiatives specifically that SINE has been undertaken to promote the growth of this smart protein sector in India. I think that'll be very valuable for some of our participants as well to hear about.
Bratati, you're on mute. My apologies. Thank you, Nicole and the Good Food India team for inviting us today and allowing us to be a part of this session. We are trying to make an impact in this arena, especially in our capacity as an incubator that is associated with an academic institute and a technical institute. And also we are a facilitator of several government grants. So our way of making an impact here is to support innovators in the field. As has been pointed out by the speakers before me, this is an extremely new and complex field. And we are trying to enter it with and educating ourselves about the different aspects of this field, and which is one of the reasons why we have chosen to collaborate with Good Food India. We are supporting such initiatives that you all have begun on your end. And so our way of helping this area out is by supporting our incubatees and encouraging people to come up with innovations in this arena, and so that we can support them through their journey. We have been fortunate to have a couple of our incubatees who are working in this domain, and through them and by helping them, we have learned a lot as well. And through our mentorship, they've managed to land BIRAC grants such as the Biotechnology Ignition Grant with innovations directed at this particular domain. We also are very encouraging of proposals that come in through our incubation pipeline. If we notice something that deals in the area of smart proteins, we are always looking forward to nurturing them as well with the help of our mentors. Now, we are lucky to be part of the IIT Bombay ecosystem that, like Dr. Diwan pointed out, this is a very multidisciplinary, and Dr. Nalam Madhusudhana Rao also pointed out that this is requires a multidisciplinary approach. And so we hope to utilize the faculty and the research facilities that we have within our ecosystem to support incubatees and mentor them through the diverse aspects that they might be facing when bringing their products to the market, seeing the complexity that such innovations involve. We also try to rope in investors who are interested in investing in such startups in this domain, because this is a coming up area that many investors are very interested in investing as well. And so we try to get their inputs on what kind of products they're looking for and what exactly they're requiring of the young startups in this domain. Now, whenever our innovators require it, as Dr. Diwan rightly pointed out, we are a Biomass Bio Incubator, so we are well equipped to help innovators in this domain with our lab facilities. But if they require, we also make connects within our IITB faculty and alumni and try to make certain research and other infrastructure available to them as well. And this support that we provide them through our industry connects also directly or indirectly helps them refine their products. And if the startup is successful, the product is successful, there is a chance to revolutionize the way we look at alternate meats. And so we have to make sure that these startups are successful in their ventures. And so we do everything in our capacity to support them. Now, again, we help our incubatees that come up with these ideas, and once they've developed a product, to follow on fundraise, to showcase their innovations to investors. And we also take them through boot camps to equip them better so that we can ensure their success in this domain. We also have series of webinars, etc., that are sometimes focused on this particular area so that we can bring general awareness and attract other nascent innovators in the system to think about prospects in this field. I would like to hand over to Rakesh, my colleague here, and he can add on to anything that I might have missed.
Right. Thanks, Bratati. Just want to give a couple of examples of startups who are in the smart protein segment. So we have a startup came to us very initial stage, and they said they want to make scaffold for lab grown meat. And then that's when BIRAC, they got the BIRAC grant, big grant. They got incubated with us, and now slowly, investors are showing interest. And in fact, GFI is also connected with them. And another startup, they were winners of the smart protein competition last year, and then they came in recently for lab grown meat. And we see a lot of synergy between both these startups. I think, it's not just incubators working in their own way, but to collaborate across different ecosystems to make sure that there is, because it takes a lot of effort from all of us to kind of put forth this important domain, especially with the increasing amount of malnutrition and all that in India. In fact, we had a session last month with regards to the 75 years of independence, in which BIRAC officials were also there, and then they put forth how important it is for India to have a focus on smart protein. So glad to be part. SINE is glad to be part of this initiative. Our CEO Pony Bhatt, she couldn't join it, but she conveys her regards to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rakesh and Bratati, and we're always so happy to work with SINE. So thank you for your support on this initiative as well. And like you rightly pointed out, it really does take an army and all of us really coming together to uplift this sector, something that's strategically important, not just for India, but globally as well. So thank you for your support. Next, I'd like to move to Dr. Narayanan, who's a principal scientist at the IIT Madras Bio Incubator. The IIT Madras Bio Incubator, of course, has emerged as one of India's most premier institutions for supporting biotech-enabled startups. And we have also been engaging regularly with the incubator to see how we can support startups within our own sector. So Dr. Narayan, if you can give us, share some insight on what support the bio incubator can provide teams that may be successful from this challenge. What kind of support can they expect to find at the IIT Madras Bio Incubator?
Thanks. Thank you, Nicole. Sure. A very good evening, one and all. And it's a pleasure from the side of the IIT Madras Bio Incubator to share this Elite platform with Dr. Diwan, Dr. Rao, and others here. So yes, it is indeed a very interesting and exciting sector that requires tremendous attention as well as involvement from many ecosystem partners at various capacities, we think. So that's one of the very reasons that from this year, we have also come on board to support this exciting smart protein sector challenge. And from our capacity, so as Dr. Diwan as well as Dr. Rao had rightly pointed out, both from the technical nuances as well as from the ecosystem perspective, we see this challenge as a triple I venture. So the first component being the innovation that cannot escape attention at all. So something that could always come new, that could contribute to various dimensions of the country, starting from productivity, starting from a different approach, starting from a new technology, so on and so forth, moving towards the nation's Atmanirbhar Bharat goal. And then the second one, notwithstanding the interdisciplinary approach, the second I, starting from polymer chemist again, as well as trained cell biologist or, stem cell specialist, and also bioengineers, not to exclude them. And biomedical engineers also to bring in to add to this components that were discussed with us, bone tissue engineering that might be required in a different perspective once all this other components fit into place to have an integral wholesome approach. So all these components adding to the interdisciplinarity becomes also very important. And the third one, sometimes which we feel, but we do not try to comprehend is the intersectoral approach, which many agencies, including DBT and BIRAC, they try to promote this day in and out, starting from the academic units, how it slowly moves towards the R&D and the transition from R&D towards tech transfer, and then scaling up there and reaching towards subsequent commercialization. And from our experiences in the bioincubator, we usually see that it's exactly during this transition from one phase to another where, be it innovators or entrepreneurs, or even R&D scientists, trained scientists, they require hand-holding to have a smoother transition, because these are the places exactly that might require technical and business mentoring. And this is also true for a newer field like smart protein sector. And that's exactly the reason why we thought that it would be interesting from our side to, to do our best that could bridge the gaps in this III approaches, what I was talking to you about. And being a BIRAC supported incubator, bioincubator, for the past 5 to 6 years with our own operational capacity, we are focusing mostly on industrial biotechnology amongst other domains like healthcare, diagnostics, therapeutics, or environmental, agri, etc. Industrial biotechnology has been one of our forte, and we host around 120 plus equipment, big and small, including many classic as well as modern technologies pertaining to protein production, purification, as well as characterization. So we think that this could benefit the innovators as well as the people who might be onboarding this call, this challenge, and then subsequently finding a place to execute or implement their activity. So in this part also, we think that we would be happy to join hands with GFI and also with the partners who might be interested in to take a collaborative approach. And then the next point I would like to highlight is, alongside the incubator activities, we also host ETA, the Early Translational Accelerator, again an initiative from BIRAC. So where we try to promote leads, mostly academic leads, but also other leads that are in their intermediate TRL levels towards close, mature TRLs. And for this, we have a platform that has been established, again, focusing on industrial biotechnology, where we have had interactions with various, national institutes like ICAR-CIBA, as well as, hospital sectors like Shankar Nethralaya, and some other partners who are interested in scaling up and subsequent commercialization of special protein molecules. And then we also start with integrated proteins that go into cell culture components as well as stem cell components, etc. That might be quite relevant from smart protein ends. And then we think that in addition to the incubator, the accelerator that is also operating in the implementation site of the bioincubator might be interesting for some of the audience and partners who might be motivated to take along this journey. So with all this, at another point, I get excited with this venture is usually when we see such, smart protein sectors, lab-grown, cultivated meat, etc., it's usually the West, be it the US or the European countries that are looked upon. And it's high time, despite being, so-called quasi-conventional society, it's high time also to explore into these ventures that might be inherently, interesting and beneficial for many of the young and upcoming generations to explore. And I'm glad that GFI provides this opportunity from various friends, be it nutrition or be it just the field to explore. That's how innovations come out also, right? And in this line, I see these initiatives being on par with the Scandinavian ecosystem where I have had the opportunity to be associated with for the past decade almost. And then I'm happy to see that slowly this transition is also happening. So having told this, we are also housed in IIT Madras Research Park, which is one of India's leading MIT model-based university setup, in terms of the innovation ecosystem. And there we have be the incubation cell that promotes the technical or business mentoring needed for people who might be onboarding this challenge call, or the Center for Innovation, or the Gopal Krishna Deshpande Center that also moves towards early identification of customer segments, which becomes very important. Though the customer segments become clear for a focused aspect like the smart protein, there might be still, sub-customer targeting and other aspects that might require finer teasing out of details. And all these can be worked upon with individual ecosystem partners that are operative within our research park, and also in collaboration with this allied platform members who are present here on board. So with all these, we think that we would be able to contribute. And now I just invite Dr. Priya, my colleague, also to add upon some of the new approaches we have in our incubation model that could benefit it. Yes, Dr. Priya, over to you. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, GFI team, for inviting us as a panelist. And adding to Dr. Narayanan points, I also would like to have the bio incubator we have a different models of incubation. We have a pre-incubation from the ideation stage to the incubation. We have a pre-incubation model, we have incubation, and we have a different other virtual incubation where we can be virtually incubated and you can access our facility. And we also have a co-incubation model where the IIT Bombay or the SINE or C-Camp or other, they can incubate there and we can have a co-incubation model. So these are all the possibilities of the incubation where the participants, if they want, they can access all these facilities. And so apart from that, we are also the knowledge partner and for the EDIA Tamil Nadu government, and also we are the bio cluster of the Tamil Nadu bio cluster, Bionest bio cluster we have. So the participants, if they want, they can access all the grants. And of course, the IIT pool mentor, we can grab the IIT faculty. They are the basically the mentors who the participants, once they can access the pool of mentors, which is in the IIT faculty. And apart from the facilities we have in the Bio Incubator, we can also provide the access the facility inside the IIT campus as well. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for this thing, and all the very best for the participants. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for sharing your views. Very quickly now, I would like to move to Dr. Neelanjana. Dr. Neelanjana, firstly, thank you so much for your patience for staying with us through all of this. Dr. Neelanjana heads the early stage entrepreneurship program at CCAMP. So Dr. Neelanjana, I wanted to ask you, how do you see the existing entrepreneurship program at CCAMP as well as the food and nutrition immersion program at CCAMP as a sort of natural partnership to the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge and to the emerging smart protein sector in India in general?
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you to the team of GFI for having us here. It's great to see the ecosystem come together. I can see most of my colleagues from BIRAC supported incubators as well as Dr. Diwan, Dr. Rao here. So it's great to see the ecosystem come together here to address this important gap that has been identified, in the food and nutrition sector. Of course, smart proteins are probably the way going forward, considering the impact and the environmental impact and the greenhouse effects of animal-based proteins. Smart proteins are obviously going to have demonstrated an exponential growth in the future. And CCAMP is happy to have been at the forefront of innovation and development of technologies in the sector. We've supported a couple of startups in this sector. Some of them are doing quite well now. If I may take a few examples, we have a startup called String Bio, which is developing, alternative protein-based alternatives for meat substitute using bacterial fermentation. We have Cleanergis, we have Femtoferrat. Incidentally, all of these have been funded through BIRAC's Biotech Ignition Grant. String Bio has gone on to raise Series A funding, and all three are currently housed at CCAMP. They're incubated at CCAMP. We also have the good fortune of being located in Bangalore, within the Bangalore Life Science Cluster, which also houses two deep science research institutes, the National Center for Biological Sciences and Institute for Stem Cell Biology and Regenerative Medicine. We are located close to IISc. And of course, in Bangalore, there is already, a significant ecosystem that has developed with innovators, mentors, investors, etc. So incubatees associated with us, either physically or through our virtual programs, always have access to all of these facilities that are available through our ecosystem. Of course, we have a state-of-the-art incubation center where we support these startups with technologies and platforms that they require. Apart from this, we are also incidentally located close to the University of Agricultural Sciences, with whom we have an ongoing collaboration. And the university has extensive expertise in plant dynamics, crop physiology, and things like that, which are significantly important in a sector like this. Apart from this, of course, the incubatees at CCAMP have access to all of our funding opportunities, many of them in association with BIRAC. We have early stage grants, we have follow-on funding opportunities. We have Investor Connects, and incidentally, we are currently running a program that you just mentioned. This is called the Social Immersion and Innovation Program, supported again by BIRAC. This time the theme is food and nutrition, where we hope to support a few immersion fellows and help them identify gaps in the food and nutrition sector, and then innovate and address these problem statements that they have identified over the course of an 18-month program. So I believe this aligns very well with the theme for today, the sector for today, the smart green sector. So CCAMP is delighted to be a part of this initiative, and we're looking forward to support the innovators and entrepreneurs that come out of this program to any which way we can. Excited to be a part of this ecosystem. And thank you very much for having us here. I'd just like to hand over the platform to my colleague, Mr. Shubham. Shubham, over to you.
Thank you, Raja, and thank you, everyone. So I'll continue with the Social Immersion Innovation Program. So the design of the program is that it's 18-month long, and we actually handhold the selected aspiring entrepreneurs, right? From even, I would say, even before they have a problem. So we take them to, ecosystem, make them observe what's happening around, and then they try to identify a problem. And once the problem is identified, we work with our mentors, which Neelanjan covered. So that is complemented in this program. And because the theme is food and nutrition, so we'll be taking through multiple, taking them to multiple stakeholders and identify the problems. Then we will work with them with help of our mentors to identify solutions for those problems. And then even so, and this is and we support them financially as well, monthly finances, as well as a Kickstart grant. And then they incorporate a company. So that way, I think it's something similar to what the challenge is, right? There is induction, there is ideation, there are innovation and entrepreneurship, both the tracks. So that aligns very well with what GFI and India Smart Protein Challenge is doing. I think, yeah, looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you both so much for your inputs, and again, delighted to have CCAMP on board as a supporting partner to the Innovation Challenge, and looking forward to more such interactions with some of our participants during the course of the challenge. Next, if we could move to Mr. Ankur Chauhan, who's currently the manager at FICSI. FICSI has been working with GFI India specifically on talent development for this sector. FICSI in general has been working to build skills required for the food processing as well as the food technology sector at large, and closely works with universities, with network partners, government stakeholders, everyone across the board essentially that are looking towards skilling and talent development. We also recently did a webinar with them about the smart protein sector. So with that, I'd like to ask you very quickly, Mr. Chauhan, what your thoughts are specifically on building the talent pool for a sector like the plant-based meat, eggs, and dairy sector, which is the primary focus of our challenge. And how do you think ISPIC can really play into that role of talent development?
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for a great introduction. And thank you, Nicole and team, for inviting us for this webinar. And a very good evening to all. So, Nicole, FICSI, first of all, I would like to say that FICSI is delighted to becoming the smart protein ecosystem partner on India's Smart Protein Innovation Challenge. And it's great to see all partners engaging for innovations and development of smart protein sector. So FICSI is a sector skill council for food processing and a not-for-profit organization registered under Societies Act of 1860. FICSI works under the Ministry of Skill Development, Entrepreneurship, and is promoted by Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and the financial assistance is provided by the National Skill Development Corporation, that is NSDC. So FICSI, Nicole, basically we create occupational standards, which are also known as qualifications in food processing sectors. And on those occupational standards, training materials and tools have been developed with the help of various industry experts of different subsectors. FICSI also conducts some skill gap studies and access and certified trainers on the curriculums aligned to the National Skill Qualification Framework, that is known as NSQF. In near future, we are planning to create an occupational standard in smart protein segment under innovation category, either for product or equipment, which will be beneficial for the improvement of this overall sector, and people will get trained and get the fruitful information and desired training under this particular sector. FICSI also engaged in various skill development initiatives of central and state government, such as PMKVY, DDU-GKY, ASAP, NULM vocational courses. We are also working with PMFME scheme, either as a project implementation or assessment agency. So this Smart Protein Innovation Challenge, which aims to educate and inspire and engage a strong pool of talent for smart protein sector, we really look forward to jointly conduct this outreach program in association with GFI to organizing workshop with the participants on the advancements, opportunities, and need of the smart protein sector in India. This is really a great initiative by the GFI to provide awareness of a completely smart protein options to those who followed this lifestyle, or or for those who want to shift to this lifestyle, as the new India is increasingly witnessing an exponential growth in smart protein awareness. So, and at the last, I would like to share is we intend to walk on a right ropeway to continued stability of smart protein innovation, so that the new opportunities will emerge in food processing sector, all within the smart protein or vegan alternative options as value added smart protein. Smart technologies are always better than the traditional ones. I believe these next generation of foods go far beyond the soya based nuggets and the mock meats that have already been existed. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And of course, thank you always to FICSI for your partnership. Finally, if we could just have Dr. Prarabdh from NIFTEM. Thank you again so much for your patience. If we could really just have you round out the conversation. NIFTEM, of course, everyone knows, is at the forefront of innovation in food science and technology in the country. And you've previously worked on the technology of plant-based meats and high moisture extrusion as well. So I'd want to ask you, how do you see the role of food technology and science in the context of our current situation in terms of talent, infrastructure, as well as scientific skills needed for India to really become a powerhouse in innovation and R&D within this domain of plant-based meat, eggs, and dairy?
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. And I would first like to thank and congratulate the GFI, especially Varun and his team, for organizing such an important and unique event, which they have been doing since past year or so. And I think this time it's even bigger. So keep it up. And it's always exciting to be associated with GFI. It's also nice to see Dr. Diwan and other luminaries from IITs and other research institutes. So coming back to your question of how food science and technology plays a role in this sector, I would say this is a very one of the most important aspects of product development, especially for a very complex product such as plant-based meat, or even if it is a cell-based meat, because food science and tech professionals have this idea about two very crucial aspects for such products, that is texture and sensory. So not just texture and sensory, a right selection of ingredients and additives is what makes product exemplary. And if you have a very good product, I would say you get that confidence and boost in marketing and other activities. As far as talent is concerned, I would say there is no dearth of talent. A lot of entrepreneurs and especially fresh graduates from top institutes have been coming forward. Apart from that, existing entrepreneurs wish to venture in this field. So there is the scientific skill and technical guidance is also available in the country, as a lot of experts with food science and interdisciplinary background or knowledge are ready to help these entrepreneurs, not just from the government or academia, but I would say even from private food and allied enterprises. Infrastructure wise, I see few lacunae, but obviously with time this lacunae could be filled up, because obviously there is nothing which comes up initially unless there is demand. So now, since demand or interest is increasing by interest is being shown by startups and entrepreneurs, so facilities or the infrastructure will slowly come up. Of course, like I would say organizations like GFI has got huge role to play and support organizations with required say facilities or maybe funds, apart from whatever government support is possible, which I think government institutes have already been doing. if I mean for participants, if I have to say NIFTEM, I think almost everybody knows about NIFTEM. It's a highly specialized institute. We're also a deemed to be university and now Institute of National Importance. And we have state-of-the-art facilities in the area of food science and technologies, right from new product development, process optimization, quality control, regulations. We have enable accredited food testing lab, which is also accredited by FSSAI as a referral lab. And we have been very well supported by Ministry of Food Processing Industries, and we have in a very short span of time we have basically come among the top institutes in the country. As well as technical guidance or consultancy is concerned, NIFTEM supports such requests in this area, in the plant-based meat or meat analogs. And we have 2 incubation centers, that is meat and poultry processing plant and ready-to-eat products plant. So wherein few meat-based meat analogs can be produced, whether it's burger, patty, nuggets, or other variants. And we have advanced coated product line for this with all setup. The startups can use these facilities and get incubated at NIFTEM. Substantial handholding is possible. We have also started an SIP program, that is NIFTEM Startup Incubation Program, in which we support startups or we incubate entrepreneurs. So I would urge startups to come forward and visit NIFTEM website. You can contact me directly, or through website you can contact our respective division. You can even come through GFI. A lot of requests do come through GFI. A lot of people come through GFI, and depending on the time and resources, we do support such requests. Our own students have participated last year and have won first prize in the same event under my guidance, and they are on their way. I'm happy to share that they are on their way to launch their first product in the market very soon. ProMate is the company. It is being headed by Mr. Devrat Das and Pranjali Garg, and I'm really very proud of them and happy to be associated with them. So for other entrepreneurs, I would urge to please come forward, and we wish all the good luck for this event as well as all the participants. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'd really like to thank all our supporting partners who could join us today by in no particular order, Dr. Manish Diwan from BIRAC, Dr. Madhusudhana Rao from CCMB, as well as Dr. Ramji from CCMB, Dr. Narayanan from the IIT-Madras Bio Incubator, as well as Priya, Dr. Rakesh Rajiv, and Dr. Bratati from SINE, IIT Bombay, Dr. Neelanjan, as well as Shubham from CCAMP, Mr. Ankur Chauhan from FICSI, as well as Dr. Prarabdh from NIFTEM. The success of the challenge will not be possible without your support. So we really, really appreciate you staying on for an hour and a half to speak with and encourage challenge participants to apply for this unique opportunity, as well as really look at opportunities within the smart protein sector. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your patience. With that, we'd like to call this webinar to a close. For any participants within the webinar right now, the GFI India team will be staying on for a further 10 minutes if you have any additional questions. But with that, we'd like to really thank our panelists for their time, and thank you so much. And we look forward to interacting with you more over the next couple of months during the course of the challenge.
Great. Wonderful.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, the GFI team. We are happy to be a part of this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Great. Thank you. So as the panelists have dropped off, we'll stay back for some questions regarding the challenge that you might have now that the session's over. Feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A bit. We can stay back for 10 more minutes. If you have any questions which haven't been answered till now, And I'll quickly share my screen and also take you through a couple of things. One is a poll that we're making live. So make sure that you take the poll. We're just switching on the poll right now and you'll see the questions in front of you. Take a minute to answer the question, and basically that will be it. We've also shared a quick outreach message with all the links from Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram that our official handle has posted regarding the India Smart Protein Innovation Challenge. A challenge is as good as the cohort that participates in it, right? Along with all the mentorship and organizing support from GFI and its partners and all of the key people involved in this while the planning of it. Ultimately, it depends on the cohort of applicants that come together and really take this challenge. So if you're applying, it makes probably sense that, multiple other people from your university, institute, or probably your alumni list, or maybe, your juniors, your seniors, researchers that probably colleagues that who are professionally interested in the food, agri, biotech kind of areas, etc., etc. Anybody who's curious about the mission, like we said, we're building a sector here. Feel free to share this opportunity widely across on your social media handles, in your mailing lists, and get in touch with us if you need more information on sending across to all of these pool of participants that might be excited to apply to the challenge. And like I said, if you want to partner up with somebody specific, as we see on our website, make sure that they're signed up for the challenge, because in phase 2 onwards, it's a team round, right? And you'll have to pair up with people to create teams of 3 or 4, depending on the tracks, etc., and the rules given on the website. So make sure that if it's somebody that you want to participate in phase 2 going forward in the challenge, if you're confident you'll go through phase 1, make sure that they're signed up for the challenge as well. If you're a startup, existing startup entrepreneur, if it's your core team of members who's applying for the challenge, make sure that you read through our FAQs, and everybody who will participate in phase 2 also participates in phase 1. Great. So I think the polling is done. We'll share the results with you. It's quite exciting to see that 66% of the people are already registered and ready. We are getting already quite a bit of applications on our page, and we are quite excited to have you all. Some of you have started the application process but are completing it. So we'll encourage you to do that as soon as possible so that we know how many people are going to register for the challenge. And at the same time, you can also share this opportunity widely across as requested previously so that more people can also apply for the challenge. Wonderful. So we can stop sharing the poll, Devika, and I'll quickly take you all who are still on the call with a couple of things.
Can we quickly go through the application form, if that's possible? There's a question here about what category to choose for freshers as well as bachelor student and master students. So if we could quickly go through the application form and share some insight on that.
Got it. Yeah, can do. Just give me a second. Got it. I got the application form. So basically, what you will be doing is you'll be asked very simple set of questions on the application page, where you're from, your basic details, your 12th highest qualification, if it's PhD, master's, bachelor's, whatever your highest qualification, put it in, and then accordingly fill rest of the details, whichever are applicable for you. If you've done PhD, you'll fill all 4 of them. If you've done bachelor's, you'll only fill that, right? And I think somebody asked what to fill in IMA, right? So basically there are a few fields in IMA, and what you're basically filling there is out of some of these areas: bachelor student, master student, PhD student, young professional, entrepreneur, and researcher. So these are exhaustive kind of categories which all of you will fall under. If you're a young professional or an industry professional, whether you're an employee in the food industry, a consultant, a researcher, a scientist, or in biotech industry or pharma industry, anywhere in the private industry or a government industry, you can basically apply as a professional. If you're a student, you can choose these categories. If you're an entrepreneur, you can choose this. If you're a researcher or academician, you can kind of choose this. And then obviously we have a few more questions for you where you kind of also giving in some more details about what technology area you might be interested in. These are not binding preferences. So, you'll have to choose one of the tracks and one of the technology areas in phase 2 onwards, and we'll come to that. But basically, yeah, this is what the form kind of looks like. And really quickly taking you through the deck slide that we have for this, which will kind of tell you how the structure of the challenge looks like and what we're kind of hoping you to do. So let me pull that up. Right. So if you're seeing my screen, this is what basically the challenge kind of looks like, right? This is a challenge if you're interested in building a career for the sector, if you're looking at exploring scientific innovation within the sector, if you're interested in business or entrepreneurship within this sector across the 3 key technology areas, right? So we have 3 key technology areas: plant-based, meat, eggs, and dairy, seafood, and other value chain solutions within plant-based. There's cultivated meat, eggs, and dairy, and value chain solutions within that. There's fermentation-derived technology area of focus as well, as we saw today. And then there are 2 tracks. One is innovation, one is entrepreneurship. The age limit for this is 35. There's no age limit for entrepreneurship. There's no age limit to sign up for the challenge in phase 1, right? Everybody's feel free to sign up and ask other colleagues and students and friends to sign up if they want to get certified for the world's first smart protein digital lab, right? And then basically you go through 40 hours of content in phase 1, and then you go through phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, as our website kind of says. We have multiple areas of focus, as I was telling you: meat, seafood, eggs, dairy, ingredients, white space, opportunity areas for venture creation, technology solutions, etc. within these 3 technology areas. And then, like I said, it offers something for everyone. At every phase, there's an Assure certificate. There's a huge cash pool, much larger than last time around, of up to INR 20 lakhs for a total of up to 20 winners, right? It will be divided among the 20 winners that we might be able to choose from the pool of applicants after the 4 phases are over. Then there'll be a short certificate at each phase that you qualify. If you qualify till phase 3, basically you'll get a certificate which says so that you've qualified till phase 3. If you qualify just phase 1, you'll get a certificate which is specific to phase 1, etc., etc. So your journey is not going to be wasted. The hard work that you put in throughout the journey of the challenge will be rewarded at every step, and it's for everyone. So whether you're a student, researcher, corporate professional, entrepreneur, we have tried to account for the 2 tracks in such a way that all the general and entrepreneur and venture creation people can apply in track 2, and then everybody who's interested in ideating theoretically on a scientific problem statement or a specific area which requires some sort of a scientific background, you should choose track 1. And again, it's not necessary. A scientist who wants to be an entrepreneur can also choose track 2 after going through the phase 1, etc. Right? So you all have an opportunity here for the first 30 days of the phase 1 to think through really clearly in terms of the resources we provide, in terms of the support and material we provide, the sessions we arrange, to understand which of these 3 technology areas in the 2 tracks you might be most interested in and might be able to best way be able to contribute to. We have mentorship for you. This time we have one-on-one mentorship as well, for top teams in phase 3 and 4. We have obviously a lot of group mentorship sessions in our inspiration webinar series. You can check those out from last year on our YouTube handle. We offer a platform for you to showcase your ideas, showcase your talent. There's a talent community, there's a GFI India innovation community. So all of these professionals that you saw, whether from industry, from government, from research institutes, are part of our various communities. And you get an opportunity to reach directly to a lot of them after you showcase your talent and innovation in the challenge. And you can find core team members, you can find co-founders, you can find a like-minded cohort of individuals to stay in touch with, not just through the 5 months of the challenge, but afterwards as well, who will help you shape your career and in many ways discover many more opportunities. And in the process, you're helping us build the smart protein sector for all the reasons we saw today, right? The time-sensitive nature of doing something to make sure that we feed 10 billion people by 2050 sustainably, efficiently, and safely, which would really affect the way we consume food, at the same time the way we look at future. And we are currently living amidst a pandemic. So I guess now is the best time to really start working towards some of these things for 2050 and make a career in a lucrative, future-proof area of profession. So please do apply before the 14th. Only 7 days are left, and make sure that you reach out widely in your networks so that other people discover this opportunity in the next 7 days and apply for it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there are no further questions, I think we can call this to a close. We will be sharing a recording of the session with everyone that has registered. As always, if you have any questions beyond the webinar as well, we have a query resolution form on this Smart Protein Challenge website. Feel free to write in your queries to us and we'd be happy to get back to you. As Devika mentioned as well, recordings will be available. We will be sending it to everyone that has applied, that has registered for this webinar. Thank you all so much for your patience. Please do apply before the 14th of September. We won't be able to accommodate anyone's application beyond the 14th of September. So do apply as early as possible. If you've registered but haven't completed your application, please do complete your application. We're here to support. Thank you so much, everyone.
Great. We'll close on the webinar. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Have a great night, and I hope you apply soon. Looking forward to seeing all your excited registrations.